What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 6. This week we have a special guest, Robert Degle. He's a Jiu Jitsu black belt, a high-level competitor, and he is now based in Vietnam.
So Robert Degle has competed all around the world. He's competed in Europe, the United States, and many parts of Southeast Asia, and he has very unique perspective on the growth of jiu-jitsu globally and how Vietnam is a hub of the growth and the expansion of jiu-jitsu.
In this episode, we talk about the differences between training jiu-jitsu in Vietnam and in the West, as well as training in Vietnam, Saigon specifically, and the rest of Southeast Asia.
Rob is a very interesting character. He's got a lot of funny stories. He's got tremendous experience in jiu-jitsu, and he loves and very passionate about the sport. So this is a very exciting episode, and we thank all of you guys for your dedicated support and supporting this channel.
Yeah, Rob, he's got a lot of personality. He's got a lot to say, and we hope you join us.
We had to bring Rob on because Adam has absolutely no personality whatsoever, and we're just glad to have some kind of flavor on the show. It took 6 episodes for us to figure that out.
Yeah, at least we're trending in the right direction.
Welcome to the Saigon Saga, where we cover combat sports in Vietnam and have fun while doing it.
Couple years back, what originally brought me to Southeast Asia was I went to Singapore. I had a friend of mine who was fighting. He had an MMA fight in Singapore. It was actually a tournament, but he lost in the first round, so he only had one fight. And he wanted someone to come corner him, and he just paid for everything for me, my hotel, my flight, everything. So yeah, I came to Singapore, and I just really liked it, like a lot. And I was like, okay. I went back, and I was like, I really wanted to just go back and like find a way to stay there, and then sort of cut out a lot. Eventually I did. Eventually I moved there. That's the Asian country I've spent most of my time in. And then eventually I left Singapore, and then I tried Thailand out for a little while, and there's a lot of pros, but also a lot of cons about Thailand. Obviously I'm not there anymore, so I decided maybe wasn't a good fit for me. And yeah, I've just bounced back and forth between there and the US, specifically Austin, Texas for training. And now I'm in Vietnam. So yeah, I guess that's sort of the story of me in brief in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. How would you compare the talent level, Texas between and Thailand?
So like, in Thailand, like the place with the most talent is Phuket. There's really no question about it. And like, I think I don't know that it's that far off, unless you're talking about like the top level guys, right? Like you've got like the hyper elite guys in Austin, Texas, but if you're excluding them, you're just talking about the general community. I actually don't think it's that far. Like if you took like 5 random guys from a gym in Phuket and 5 random guys from a gym in Austin, Texas, I don't think it's that far off. Yeah, I mean, I think Austin is like, I think it's a pretty good spot if you're just trying to train, right? Like that's why I kept going there. I don't think that I'll go back there. I don't want to say never, but I don't think I'll go back to Austin. But yeah, yeah, that's how I would describe it.
I spent a very little time in Austin, maybe about 6 weeks, just training at B team mostly, 10th Planet a few times. I found just training B teams a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Rolling with all the guys there, a lot of competition comes in. They keep everything fun. So, well, I mean, what is your experience?
Yeah, so I used to live like walking distance to B team, so I would just like I would be there all the time, obviously, pretty much every 12 p.m. class. And then I went to a lot of the 10th Planet Austin sessions as well, like the Sunday open mat and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's really, really good for training. So yeah, that's why everyone's like, if you're going to Austin, you're a jiu-jitsu guy, like that's why you're going there, right? Because the training is really high level. Austin itself is like, I don't know, it's not really a city that I think is that interesting, but it's not like bad, you know what I mean? Yeah, so, and I don't know Austin very well at all because I literally just stayed near the gym.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into too much jiu-jitsu stuff, I just have just a few questions I find interesting, like your name, like Degle versus Diggle. I read somewhere where you kind of changed your name as you were becoming more and more well known in the jiu-jitsu community, and you were studying philosophy at the time.
Well, so I mean, basically what happened was I never really thought that I was going to make a living teaching jiu-jitsu, right? It was like this side thing that I was doing. I was a grad student in philosophy, and that is what I was aiming towards doing, right? And I didn't really want to have my jiu-jitsu stuff connected to I was in a master's program applying to PhD programs, and I didn't want them to be able to Google me and find the jiu-jitsu stuff, right? So I just changed my name. I was like, oh, this is like this dumb little hobby that I have. Like, I wasn't taking it that seriously. And then really what changed it was actually the original story that I told, like, in Singapore, right? Like, I would not be doing what I'm doing now, like teaching jiu-jitsu for a living, had it not been for that trip to Singapore. Because that trip to Singapore, it was one of the first times I ever made a good amount of money teaching. So something I left out of that story was that I got 2 seminars, and I made pretty good money at those seminars. Okay. And that was a big moment for me where I realized, like, okay, I can actually make money teaching jiu-jitsu. So, so anyway, that's why I changed the name. Now, I really wish I could, like, my IG handle, I wish I could just spell it the correct way, because but at this point it's like so associated with me. Like, if you go into my bio, I spell it correctly. And I just treat the Degle spelling almost like a nickname or something. Like, a lot of authors have pseudonyms, like, guess I kind of think of it that way. So yeah.
You didn't really change your name that much, though.
I mean, I didn't have a completely different name, like, yeah.
But like now, jiu-jitsu has evolved. The sport is growing. Mm-hmm. If you had to make the same choice now when you're applying to these doctorate programs, would you change your name again?
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is like, like, look, when you're for PhD programs in philosophy, they're so, like, hypersensitive as to what they're looking for and stuff. Like, it's really, really hard to get into a good program. And I don't know what this old guy in this, like, philosophy admissions program, like, what he's thinking. Like, let's say he Google searches my name, he sees jiu-jitsu, and then he Google searches again, and, like, he sees, like, UFC stuff, and he's like, whoa, this is really violent, and, I don't know, right? So it's like, I just don't want to, at the time, I didn't want to have that association. I just wanted to totally keep it separate. But now, obviously, like, look, I've made my choice. There's no going back with it, right? Like, there's no possible way now, if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to do my PhD in philosophy, they're going to see this stuff, right? Yeah, it's too far gone, obviously, right? So, and I don't know if it would have made any difference. I never actually finished the applications to find out. So, and I don't think they would have told me anyway. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's the reason why.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about philosophy and how that's changed your approach toward maybe life and jiu-jitsu?
So, I mean, I think that, like, so for me, like, what interested me about philosophy was that I'm just a very curious person. Like, ever since I was a kid, I've always asked, like, lots of questions. And, like, my mom had lots of philosophy. She took a lot of philosophy classes when she was in college. And so in our house, we had lots of philosophy books, which I just started reading when I was, like, pretty young. And I just got very interested in the subject. I guess, like, I think, like, another thing that interests me about philosophy is I see it as very foundational. Like, it's sort of a topic that underlies everything else. And when you, like, for me, like, I always think to myself, like, okay, before I start something, I want to understand the foundation of it. And philosophy, at least how it's pitched, is like the foundational subject of existence, right? Now, what's interesting is I think in a lot of ways it's not really that. Philosophy is a subject that I think, like, it's very worth diving into, but you have to accept going into it that you won't really get that many answers, actually, because it's more about the questions than the answers, which is, I think, a very frustrating thing for a lot of people, right? Like, so for instance, like a question like, does God exist? I don't really think there's an answer to that question. Or maybe a better way to put it is, I don't think there's an answer to that question that we can gain access to, like, as human beings. But asking that question, I think, is still very valuable, because it's going to reveal to you how you see the world, right? Like how you interpret that question, and understanding your own personal interpretation of that question is going to influence how you approach things. And if you analyze your own views better, right, it helps you understand yourself better. So yeah, I mean, I love philosophy. I still read philosophy now. I think that, like, why I wanted to do a PhD is not really a great reason. So it's okay. There were two reasons. I've never talked about this on a podcast, by the way. So the first one was I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I don't know. I really liked philosophy. It's what I was doing as an undergrad, and I was like, I read a lot. I did a lot of jiu-jitsu and I read a lot of philosophy. That was how I spent most of my time. And so I was like, I guess I'm just going to go to grad school. And the second reason was I had a class with a really hot TA, so a teacher's assistant. And so I was an undergrad, she was a grad student, and nothing ever happened between us, but she used to flirt with me like all the time. And if I wasn't such like a bitch back then, I definitely could have like got with her. But I remember thinking like, whoa, all right, there's girls like this in PhD programs. Maybe I should go do one. Yeah. I mean, it's a terrible reason to go do a PhD, but like, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, that did influence me.
A young man trying to figure out his life.
Yeah.
What else are you gonna fall back on?
Yeah.
Is there anything, any way that you apply philosophy to jiu-jitsu in terms of maybe not just like techniques or anything like that, but in terms of like this global expansion in your role in it?
I think that philosophy, when you get really deep into it, is a very, very abstract discipline. Like, it's very separate from like everyday stuff, so in a practical sense, I don't think it influences almost anything I do in jiu-jitsu, but in a more like intellectual sense, philosophy teaches you how to think, right? So it gives you critical thinking skills, generally speaking. It's one way that you can gain critical thinking skills, right? So in that sense, it has helped me with jiu-jitsu. But you don't have to do philosophy to get that, right? You could gain critical thinking skills as a science guy, right? As any sort, like, there's a bunch of different things you could do to get that, right? But philosophy was it was for me what interested me, So like, that's how I sort of learned critical thinking skills. If that makes sense.
Maybe if Adam were to start studying philosophy, he'd be a better grappler, but
there's no hope. I gotta start somewhere before that.
Yeah, he's all that we can get.
Maybe if Zach finished grade 9, you get your grade 9, you'd be a better grappler.
Well, I can read and write some basic,
Do you learn English or American?
American.
You're from Texas, right?
No, I'm from Virginia, actually.
Oh, Virginia, okay.
Yeah, so I'm from like this very small town. There's more people on this street than the town I'm from, like 3,000 people.
Okay.
So very like in the mountains of Virginia, near West Virginia. We had a football team, a wrestling team, and blue collar town. But I grew up in the mountains. Grew up running the mountains, before school, so I could get ahead in wrestling, stuff like that.
Two of my best friends are from West Virginia. Oh, really? Yeah. Shout out to Lee Keaton and Colin Caprini.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Have you ever been to Virginia or West Virginia?
I've driven through Virginia, and I've taught a couple seminars in West Virginia at the gym that my buddies train at.
Oh, where's that?
I've been there like 3 times. I should know this. I don't remember the town's name. But yeah, the gym is called Ground Zero, and the gym is pretty good. But yeah, I honestly am blanking.
Is it like in a big city like Degle?
No, I think it's a relatively small.
Big city.
I mean, in West Virginia, there's less than 1 million people in the whole state.
What's the capital of West Virginia? It might be the capital.
Charleston?
What's the big college town?
Or Beckley, Charleston or Beckley or Lewisburg.
Okay, it's not.
Wait a second. No, it's up north. Where WVU is.
Yes. It's that town. Yeah, whatever town that is. Don't hate me for forgetting this guy.
Are there any speeding tickets while you're there?
No, I never.
Virginia?
I never drove. I'm sorry. Through Virginia, I've driven, yes, but I've never gotten speeding. Okay, no. The thing that stood out to me most about Virginia was I pulled off at a rest stop, or I rather just at a gas station there, and they had joints for sale at the gas station. And I was like, what is this? What is this? This is weed. This is legal here now? They said, yeah. I was just shocked that.
In West Virginia.
Yeah, this was Virginia.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. Or maybe it was.
I think it was West Virginia.
Okay. Still all Virginia.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Where's WVU? Oh, it's in... I should really know this.
So it's all the way from West Virginia. Now he's on the side.
I'm actually from Virginia.
Let's
not make that mistake.
Singapore. What is your first impression? You came here a month ago to do your seminar. Like compared to going to Singapore for the first time, what was your first impression? Getting out of the airport here.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think that there are certain things about Saigon that are actually very similar to Singapore. Like kind of like really small like things. Like for instance, like a lot of the rooftops have a similar, like, I don't know what the design is. It's like an orange design, but you see it all the time in Singapore, and it's here as well. And it's very green here, just like Singapore, but that's maybe where the similarities end.
But there's nothing better than getting off the airplane here, walking into the airport, and it's like, you feel like you're a celebrity, the red carpet. Everyone, no one's waiting for you, but everyone and their sister is there.
Yeah.
The signs and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there's certain things that I think are interesting about, like, when I first came here, a lot of people had told me certain things, like they said it was like, oh, it's really, really dirty. And I don't think it is at all. I think I've been to much dirtier places. I don't think Saigon is that dirty. I think it's really kind of in the middle of the road. Like, it's not super clean, but it's not super dirty either. Yeah, I mean, the big differences between Singapore and Saigon are the same differences between Singapore and everywhere else in Southeast Asia, which is that, like, Singapore is a highly westernized, predominantly Anglophone, former British settler colony, and the rest of Southeast Asia are Asian countries, if that makes any sense, right? Like, Singapore is an Asian country, but it has as much in common, I think, with other former British settler colonies like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, right? Like, what is the first language of most Singaporeans? It's English. The language of government, the language of education, it's English there. You go there, like, I remember one time I was in Singapore. I remember exactly where I was. I was on Hong Kong Street, walking down, going to the mall. I forget the name of the mall, but anyway. And I had this realization to myself. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm in Asia right now. This is when I was living there. I don't know, my brain had, like, forgotten that I was in Asia, and I don't even remember what it was that made me remember again that I was, but it's just so westernized, right? And this is a good thing and a bad thing. So for me, I don't mind it because it makes everything so easy, right? Everyone speaks English. It's so, like, convenient. It's so easy to do stuff there. Like, so for instance, like, if you ever get lost, you can just ask someone. Like, you can generally assume most people are going to speak English. Even if they're not fluent, maybe like a very old person, maybe they're gonna know enough to be able to, like, help you out, right? So it's really nice in that regard. But the reason why a lot of people don't go there is because the cost of living is extremely high, right? Like, it's pretty brutal. Yeah, my rent in Singapore was like. So when I was living in Thailand, I had a pretty nice apartment in Bangkok, right? Very convenient location, very, very nice building. It was like 1/5 of the cost of my shoebox in Singapore, Wow. Yeah, and I wouldn't call my apartment in Singapore nice. It wasn't bad. But
what can you get for $500 in Bangkok?
In Bangkok, you can get something pretty nice. Yeah, for sure, yeah. Bangkok is like another can of worms. It's kind of like, there are certain similarities with Singapore in terms of, like, it's a well-designed city with good public transportation, but maybe that's where the similarities end. Yeah, it's also so different. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been working on the metro here, I think, since
Yeah, I've heard about it.
But they were doing the test runs now. I've seen the metro train go by. No one's on it, but it's moving.
Okay. I've seen the stations. They're like always
The
boarded up.
stations have been here.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm not really. I think if you're coming here, you need to learn how to ride the bikes.
Without question, it's the lifeblood of Vietnam, the motorbike.
Yeah, there's no way around it. So tomorrow I'm doing my first lesson. I've ridden them before in Phuket, but I'm not good on them, and I feel like I'm gonna die half the time.
Lesson: go to the busiest traffic circle in District 1,
No.
get on the bike, and then like 20 minutes later,
That's
nothing
how
else
you-
seems that hard.
No, that's how you die. I don't want to do that.
So he was giving you a lesson.
It's an actual place you can pay them.
Really?
I just looked up motorbike lessons Saigon, and a place came up. It's in D. There's one in D1 and one in D7. I booked the one in D7 before I knew the one in D1 existed, so I'm going to the one in D7. Wow. It's not that bad. It's like maybe $15 for like an hour and a half lesson, and to me, that's worth it because I don't want to die. For sure. Yeah, like so. My experience riding the bike in Phuket was a buddy of mine, Sebastian. He's a Singaporean guy. He was in Phuket at the same time as me, and he had a bike, and he was like, okay, he's like, I'm going to help you learn how to ride. So I borrowed his bike, was riding it around. You know, it was like, it's not that hard to just get on and start riding it, but the difficulty comes in when you add other riders, right? So, yeah. And I think Phuket's, I don't know for sure because I don't have the experience to say, but my sort of gut feeling is that Phuket is more dangerous.
The road is smoother. People drive faster, and you've got a lot of bigger motorcycles.
Yeah.
For sure. Here, everyone's driving like 125 cc.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go so fast.
Okay. That's good.
Because there's oncoming traffic in your lane.
Yeah. But I will say, I was talking to someone the other day, another foreigner, and they were like, yeah, they've lived here for like a couple years. Like, I don't ride it anymore because I got hit by a truck. And I was like, what the fuck? So, yeah. So, but anyway, I am going to start practicing tomorrow, and like, hopefully I get to a degree of comfort on them that I can like get around a little bit more. Right now I'm taking grab everywhere, which is like, you can do it, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like things open up when you yourself can ride the bike.
Grab is super convenient, but like yesterday I had to get an oil change, and even just not having access to the motorbike, even though I'm not going anywhere, I'm just at the cafe, knowing that you can't drive somewhere, you feel completely trapped.
Yeah, for sure. That's absolutely the feeling that I have, where it's like,
it's 35 degrees out, and you don't want to walk anywhere. There's no room on the
I
side.
can't imagine not having a bike with me at all times. I hate riding in a car.
Yeah.
Riding in a car in the city is much slower.
Yeah, like the bikes, if there's traffic, you're still moving.
Yeah.
Like you might slow down, but you're always moving. In a car, like especially in this neighborhood, it is a nightmare. There's so many more cars, and the roads aren't built for them, and they're all just like carrying one passenger and trying to do a U-turn on a one-way street.
Okay.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. It's just a necessity of life here, and it's like, so it's kind of, for me, interesting because I'm somebody who, like, I'm really into public transportation. Is it working, this thing?
Yeah, but I think go toward the mic a little bit.
Hello.
Yeah, it's like I can see this.
Morgantown. There you go. There we go. Okay, I'll do this. Does this make it better?
Everyone in West Virginia is talking about Morgantown. It's like the Big Apple.
Is it really? No. Okay, all right.
It's a really big party school. I've never actually been there, but I knew this one kid from Allegheny. Allegheny's like the county I grew up in, and it's a very small town. Yeah. But I remember one of my friends, my brother's friends, Joey, and Joey is just like a happy guy, very single his whole life, and talks about that one year he was in college. And he said the first week he was there, the parties were so much fun that he'd already decided he was never going to class, and he was okay with only going to college for 1 year. Jesus. And he said to this day he doesn't regret it, and that was like 15 years ago.
Nice.
So
the highlight of that guy's life.
He's still telling stories from it.
Don't let that guy ever get a plane ticket to Bangkok. That's it.
Pass, make it to the second year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's It's great. Like the city's like Medellin. I used to live in Medellin.
Yeah.
And this was not during the time where I was crazy. There was a time when I was crazy.
Oh,
No. But I'm not crazy anymore. Then I moved to Medellin. I still don't drink or anything. And my buddy who is crazy, I said, wanted to come visit me. And he's like, all right, I'll come down for a month. And so he came down. And I said, before you come down, just know that, like, it's a slippery slope. There's a lot of temptation here. I know you're going to want to do it a little bit, but, let's ride some motorcycles in the Andes and things like that. I only saw him 2 times. And went 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And he ended up having to get, someone to buy him a plane ticket back to the U.S. He didn't even say goodbye. He didn't even say goodbye to me.
And the amount of just like old, derelict white people walking around there in Phnom is ridiculous. Begging for money.
Yeah, Phnom Penh is it's an interesting city because it's almost okay. And again, I've only been there one time. It's almost 2 cities in one, right? You've got the side of it that I think is really cool, which is like it's very chill. I like how small it is. There's a really good jiu-jitsu gym there, Kiri Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. But then there's another side of it where you're like, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, so there's, I don't even know the name of this area, but I was by like this river and there were a bunch of like naked children running around trying to pickpocket people. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck kind of area is this? Like, dude, there was a bar that was named like, it had like this fucking weird ass name. It was like, I don't remember, but it was just something like dude, these like weird English names that like didn't make any sense. And like, yeah. So that's I guess like Phnom Penh is the place in Southeast Asia with the lowest level of development that I've been to. I've heard Laos is even lower, but I still like Cambodia. I think, or at least I should say Phnom Penh. I thought it was cool.
Cambodia is great. The people are nice, but it does seem like the place where if you are down on your luck or you cannot be in the country for whatever reason, like from your home country,
right.
You can like get a visa or get over the border and just exist in Cambodia. And then I see a lot of people like still existing a lot of years later.
The jiu-jitsu there is really good though. I really like the jiu-jitsu community. It's essentially just one gym. It's called Kiri Jiu-Jitsu. And those guys I like a lot. Like I view that gym like really, really positively. And I really like the guys there. I think they're like just very normal guys, and like both foreigners and locals. Like the guy who owns that gym, Jasper Paz, he's like a super chill, just regular ass guy. Like a lot of foreign guys that live in Southeast Asia, I think are fucking lunatics, especially the ones who live in Thailand. But Jasper's just so, at least my experience with him, so normal. Yeah, and like I definitely liked that, but yeah.
How many people go to that gym?
A lot. It's the only gym in Cambodia. It's literally the only one. Yeah. So
it's like on the same level as PGA.
No, PGA is a very different kind of feeling. PGA is predominantly foreigners, right? You have a few Thais, but not that many. PGA is kind of like I would compare it almost to like a B team in Asia, kind of a little bit like that. Like it's very transient, lots of people coming in and out, right? Like if you go to B team, at least half the room is going to be visitors, maybe even more than that, right? So it's very transient in a similar way. Whereas Kiri, I think you're going to have a lot of visitors, but a lot of the people also just live there. So like if you live in Phnom Penh and you're a foreigner and or you're a local for that matter, and you want to train jiu-jitsu, there's only one option. So that's where you're going to go, right? So, yeah, Kiri is a little bit more like of a, you're going to meet and train with local guys as well as foreigners. So, and less people will be transient. So definitely a different feeling than PGA. Does that make sense? Yeah, I like both of those gyms. I think they're both really cool. They just sort of fill different niches, Like there aren't, like in Phuket, that's a place where legitimately top-level MMA guys are going to do camps, right? Like I've seen like Rafael Fiziev on the mats at PGA, right? Like I've seen like UFC guys, One Championship guys, Bellator guys on the mats at PGA. You're not going to see that in Phnom Penh, right? Like it's just like no one's going to Phnom Penh to do a camp. But you will see, like, they have
Well, it depends what kind of camp you're going for.
Well, yeah, I mean, like an MMA camp. Yeah. But I've seen, like, they have, like, 5 foreign black belts at one gym in Phnom Penh, which for Southeast Asia, that's a lot, you know? Yeah. But let's talk a little about the jiu-jitsu in Vietnam, too. Because, bro, that's one of the best things about this entire city, in my opinion. If not the best thing about this city. Yeah, I think the jiu-jitsu in Vietnam is fucking awesome. Like, it's almost, I was talking to a friend of mine last night about this. It's almost like shocking how good it is. Like, you would never think Vietnam has good jiu-jitsu.
Well, 5 years ago there was no jiu-jitsu.
And
that's what's beautiful about it, because it's scaling so fast.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's so interesting.
Sorry. What is crazy is somebody, I don't know who and how they got this idea, but Zach has actually received prize money for competing.
I did.
Yeah, that's cool.
Somebody made a mistake for sure.
I have a purple belt. I got to compete, and because I won, I received prize money.
Cool, nice.
In the U.S., man, purple belt for like who's winning money?
Yeah.
But there's investment here. People want to see like exciting matches. People want to see lots of tournaments.
Yeah.
There's phantom investors. Like people want to see the sport grow here for sure. It's an amazing time.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here in Vietnam. And I just think it's going to take a little bit of like unification, and there's a lot of things that we can be easily improved that I believe that will have like a big impact. Like for example, something as simple as like ADCC Bali had like great commentators. Yeah. You know what I mean? There doesn't exist.
That was actually my least favorite thing about that event. It was an awesome event, but the one thing I hated was the commentary during the matches. I'm trying to compete, and the commentator is like talking about, like, because I could hear it. I'm like, bro. At one point, I was going for something, and he was calling the move out. I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. He can hear you. Like, I'm trying to do this to this guy.
For those of us who aren't famous yet in jiu-jitsu, it makes us feel
I like do a move to my opponent, and I'm like, I don't want the commentator's literally. He's like, oh, Rob's about to do this, and I'm like, dude, now he knows. Like, shut up.
It's different. We don't have that much forethought.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. But overall, the tournament was sick. That was a really, really good tournament. Yeah. But anyway, so we were talking about this before we started recording the podcast. I think that, so for me, like what has drawn me to Vietnam is like, it's not even what's here now, it's what I see as what could be here, right? Like if you look at like Southeast Asia, the different countries and stuff, I think of all the countries that I've been to, I see the most potential in Vietnam for the growth of jiu-jitsu. Because Vietnam, okay, so let's compare Thailand and Cambodia for a second, right? Okay, so where is there better jiu-jitsu overall right now? It's no question it's Thailand, right? It's not even a debate, right? But it's almost all driven by the foreigners, right? There are Thais that are good, usually the ones that train with the national team, but they mostly stick to themselves. They maybe they'll train with the foreigners a little bit, but not as much as in a place like Cambodia. So in Cambodia, the national team guys and the foreigners, they all train together like a lot, right? Like if you took the national team guys in Thailand and you let's say you had them train with the PGA guys, I think that's really good for the growth of jiu-jitsu in that country. Right, like in a country where jiu-jitsu is growing, what you want to have is synchronicity between the foreigners and the locals. You want them to be working together because they each bring something different that the other doesn't have, right? What the foreigners bring is pre-established knowledge and skill, right? They're coming from a place where jiu-jitsu is already more developed, so they have pre-established knowledge and skill. What the locals have is commitment to the location, right? Like if it's your country, your family's there, if that's where you live, you have more commitment to grow the sport there, right? So you want to have both of these things, right, to grow jiu-jitsu in a country. Now, Cambodia has both of those things, but what I see as being the limitation on Cambodia is that the population is very small, right? Like what is it, like maybe 4 million, something like that? It's not a big country.
It's at 16 million.
Okay. But it's still relatively small, right? Now compare that to Vietnam. What is Vietnam, like 85 million? It's a relatively big country, right? Let's see.
So Phnom Penh is 2.2 million. This city is 13 million.
Yeah.
So Vietnam is it's 97 million.
Yeah.
So the 15th largest by population in the country.
Yeah.
In the world.
And then the population here is predominantly young. This is a very young country, right? Compare that, for instance, to Italy, right? Italy has the second most, I forget how to word this, but like the second most aging population in the world behind Japan, right? So there's a massive problem in Italy. This bodes very poorly for the future of the economy of Italy. The population is very old, and a lot of the young people are leaving, right? So Italy has a sort of a catch-22 situation with their inclusion in the EU. If you're a young Italian person, why would you stay in Italy, right? You can go to the Netherlands, you can go to Germany, you can go to France, which have much stronger economies. Because if you have a single EU passport, you can live and work anywhere else in the EU. Vietnamese people, they don't have that, right? They have a Vietnamese passport, they can live in Vietnam. And because the population is so young, that's positive for the economy, and it's positive for the development of different things here, right? So I think that, so when you combine all these things, okay, the foreigners and the locals train here completely holistic, in synchronicity, right? There's no like separation of them like whatsoever. Like they train like, when you show up at Over Under or Arcane or wherever else, like who you roll with, like whether it's an American or a Vietnamese person, there's no like, it doesn't feel any different, right? It's just a person you're training with, right? So everyone's kind of working together in that regard. You have like a population that's growing and you have a big population, right? So it's these things sort of combined together, and it's like I see a lot of potential in this country, more so than I think any other Southeast Asian country. Now, I haven't been everywhere. I haven't been to the Philippines. I've only been to Bali in Indonesia, which is kind of not really Indonesia. Yeah. Technically, I've been to Indonesia, but, is it really? Yeah, so I don't know. I couldn't say for those places, but of the places I've been, I definitely think Vietnam has, like, the most potential to really, like, have jiu-jitsu grow massively here.
Yeah. What other parts of the world, how does that compare to other parts of the world where grappling is expanding? Is it expanding fast in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's expanding fast everywhere. I think what holds Europe back a little bit is like a lot of this, like, I don't know, right? Like, keep in mind the stuff that I'm saying, these are just like my like observations and thoughts. I'm not like trying to say like I know everything about these countries and whatnot. I think in Europe, there's like a little bit, it seems like there's people less interested in sports. Like it's not, like they're not as athletically inclined, right? Like I could be totally off about that, but that's a vibe that I get, right? Like, so for instance, I taught at a gym in Switzerland for 2 weeks. Pretty high level of skill at the gym, but like, I would say lower than here, for instance, right? Like Over Under is a tougher gym than the gym that I trained at in Switzerland. And gi and nogi, but I only taught nogi. We did like 2 nogi sessions a day, and like the guy who owns a gym, it's not his full-time job, right? Like he has a regular day job. He told me it's kind of difficult to make a living teaching jiu-jitsu only in Switzerland. So I think that's true in most places in Europe. Most of the guys, like I taught at a gym in Sweden, owned by a guy who was a former ADCC trials winner. Oh, wow. Yeah, but that's... It's part of like a club, right? But it is a separate gym, but he doesn't, like, that's not his full-time job, right? Like, so like, this is also, I think, kind of what holds Singapore back a little bit, right? So if you look at Singapore, okay, Singapore is extremely expensive. So if you want to be a full-time athlete in Singapore, it's like fucking hard. Your cost of living is very, very high. Whereas here, it's not as high, right? So Vietnam is much cheaper, right? Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, these countries are much, much cheaper than Singapore or Europe, right? So in countries like Singapore or in a lot of European countries, guys have to spend, or just people in general, have to spend a lot of time like paying rent, you know what I mean? Like making money to survive, right? So to become like a full-time athlete, it's a lot harder, right? And then the U.S. is kind of like similar, but I guess maybe what's different about the U.S., at least from like how it looks to me, I think Americans just like love sports more. Like we are very, very like motivated by sports, right? Yeah.
You see it in school, like it starts there. In Canada, it's a little bit different. Our school sports are not as focused on in junior high and high school, whereas club sports are more valuable. But in the States, like, okay, you make the middle school team, okay, you make the junior varsity, okay, you want to go to college. That's the route.
Yeah.
And you see it in like, even the movie culture, like everyone wants to play football.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like it's definitely interesting how much Americans like sports. Like we're very, very motivated by it for whatever reason.
Everyone, when you're little, what do you want to do? Athlete.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, whatever sport you're interested in, everyone wants to play NHL. Everyone wants to play NBA.
I mean, not everyone wants to play in NHL.
Zach wants to
I mean, not everyone wants to play hockey. But
everyone
maybe in
wants to be in
Canada. Maybe in Canada.
Where in Canada are you from?
I'm from Calgary.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've been up there.
I've been to Toronto a couple times and Montreal once, but not to Calgary. No.
Yeah, it's far.
Yeah.
I think there's more people in Saigon than all of Canada.
Bro, it is like I went to school in Charlotte.
North Carolina.
Yeah,
Okay.
for 4 years, and like driving from my city to Charlotte takes less time than driving from my city to Ottawa.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. So that's another funny thing that I often have to like explain to like people from Europe or Asia, like how fucking massive North America is, right? Like I've driven from New York to Austin, Texas, like a couple times. That's like a 27-hour drive. Yeah, and if you do that in Europe, you're like going from, I think it's all the way from Moscow to like, I want to say like Barcelona. It might that might be an exaggeration, but it's not that much of an exaggeration. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. And then if you look at that in Asia, it's like fucking, what is that, like Ho Chi Minh to like Beijing? I don't know. It's pretty far.
Vietnam is big. It doesn't look big on the map.
It's
from north
tall.
to south, it is long. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty much spans Europe.
I think it's about 1,000 miles between here and Hanoi.
Yeah, it's big, man. But there's so many regional flights.
Yeah.
It's easy to get around in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, for sure. You have VietJet, Air Asia, and Thai Air Asia. It sucks, but it's cheap. It's cheap. Yeah.
Last time I flew VietJet, I was supposed to go to Phuket for a tournament, and I showed up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you don't have a flight anymore."
Phuket's off flight.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "You didn't pay." I was like, "Oh, I definitely paid." Like, check my bank account, and then they're like, "Talk to your bank," and they didn't want to hear anything else. They did not care. And then they're like, "Go to the desk." I went to the desk, and I was like, "Hey, can I get a ticket?" And they're like, "Go online and buy one." I was like, so I didn't go to the tournament last.
Yeah,
And
wow.
VietJet is great if you're not sure if you want to go on vacation.
The story about, it's not VietJet, but it's the other discount airline, Air Asia. Okay. This is just such a ridiculous situation. So I was in Bangkok. I was going back to the U.S., right? I had a layover actually had 2 layovers. This is the first time technically that I came to Ho Chi Minh City. I had a layover in Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, which that's actually another funny part of the story that I'll tell. But let me get to the first part first. So I had 2 layovers. First was Japan. I guess Japan must have been the second one. I don't know, whatever. I had 2 layovers, Ho Chi Minh and Japan, Tokyo, Narita, and then back to the U.S., right? I get to the airport and I go up to Air Asia and I'm like, hey, I'm flying to the US by way of Ho Chi Minh, Tokyo, and then the US. And they're like, we don't have any flights like that today. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I was like, they're like, there must have been some kind of mistake. And I was like, oh, all right. Okay, so I guess I'll just get another flight back home. So I just got a flight the next day. Then I realized my flight was with not Air Asia, but Thai Air Asia. So I go up to the Air Asia desk. I'm like, oh, no, I do have it. It's with Thai Air Asia. And they're like, that's a different company. What do you mean it's a different company? It's the same logo. It's the exact same logo. It doesn't say Thai Air Asia, doesn't have Thai Air Asia. It just says Air Asia. I'm like, how the fuck is it a different company? And they're like, yeah, it's a different company. We have no association. I was like, what? So I go up to Thai AirAsia. I'm like, okay, guys, I missed my flight. I'm like, this is a ridiculous situation. Can you guys help me out? And they're like, no, we're just totally different companies. Sorry about that. And I was like, how? It's the same logo. There must be some history of like, you know, like Thai Red Bull and like Austrian Red Bull?
No.
How they're totally different companies?
I don't know anything about it.
It's the same logo. It's the exact same logo. The Thai Red Bull and the Austrian Red Bull, but they're completely different drinks and different companies. It's got to be something like that. I've never looked into it, but it's like, yeah. So anyway, what I did was I got another hotel, just stayed there another night, and then I came back and flew home the next day. And then I knew, but yeah. And then the second part of the story, the part that has to do with Vietnam, this was like it was almost like God was transpiring to keep me from going back to the U.S. So I landed in Vietnam, and I had to go through immigrations to get to my next flight, to get to Japan. And I show my US passport, and he says, do you have a visa? And I said, no, I'm just on a layover. And he goes, well, you have to enter the country. He goes, you need a visa. And I was like, wow. He's like, we're gonna send you back to Thailand. I was like, fuck. So
Asia or Thai?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We don't know. We just know they're different.
Yeah. And so then I'm like, I'm sort of panicking. I reach into my fanny pack. I pull up my Italian passport. I said, what about this one? And he goes, oh, you have an Italian passport. And I was like, see. And then he takes it, he stamps it, and he lets me through. And I was like, what just happened? So then I went on my phone, I searched. There's only like 15 countries that get visa-free travel to Vietnam. Italy is one of them. So my passport saved me. Yeah. And it didn't even occur to me to I didn't even check because I was like, it's a layover, right? Like I didn't even check that I needed a visa. But yeah, so fortunately, because I had that passport, I was able to get through, and that is my first Vietnamese stamp. Wow. Is to enter and exit I was there for like 3 hours, but I still got the stamp. Yeah. So technically, my first time in Vietnam.
What year was that?
That was like a year ago, maybe not that long ago. Oh. I could check on my passport, but about a year ago. Yeah. So, yeah, what a very crazy series of things getting back to the U.S. that time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, yeah, we're so just getting back to how fast it's amazing how fast grappling is expanding because it's really only a few decades old, really. And like you compare it to wrestling. Wrestling is like years old, so it had lots of time. It's a Olympic sport, but
if you count like Jiu Jitsu, right, like all like in Japan, it's probably maybe just as long as wrestling, right? Like the samurai stuff, right? But if you talk about like grappling as like a modern sport, it's like I don't think it really started until like, I don't know, maybe we could say like the beginning of the IBJJF in 1996 or like the beginning of ADCC in 1998, like kind of like arbitrary where it really began, but like that's sort of like the modern era, so to speak, you know.
Unified rule set.
Yeah, which we still don't have really. Like there's like 85 different rule sets, and like I've competed in tournaments where I shouldn't tell this story. I will just say I competed in a tournament one time. I really like the organizers. They're really nice people. They did not think about the rule set at all. There were certain things, fortunately, that didn't happen, but could have like, they were like, there was an overtime rule, which they had spent, you could tell like no time really thinking about what would happen if this happened. It wasn't in America. I don't want to say because I like these guys, but it definitely was like, you know, sometimes I think people like jiu-jitsu or like grappling is like a sport where like, you know, it's like, it's a little bit like the Wild West, right? Like it's so, you know, there's so much, which is a good and a bad thing, right? Is there's like a lot of opportunity to do stuff, but it's like kind of crazy sometimes, right? Like if you look at like wrestling, like there's like generally speaking 2 main rule sets. A couple others. You got freestyle, Greco, folk style, and then like beach wrestling, you know, sort of is a thing, right? And sumo, I guess, if you want to really push the boundaries of what are we calling wrestling, right? Whereas like grappling, it's like, bro, you have so many different rule sets. Like there are tournaments that I want to do. I was thinking about this today. Like, there's a tournament in Australia that I want to do. I actually don't know what the rule set is. So yeah, I was like, oh, I got to check on my phone. Like, what is the rule set? I don't know, you know?
Yeah, see if it favors you.
What's that?
See if it favors you.
Yeah. Because
Do you have a favorite rule set? Like something you like to compete in?
I think my favorite rule set overall is ADCC. I just wish that it had points the whole time. I don't really like the no points period because, like, I've seen ADCC rules matches where, like, I'll give you guys a specific example. There was a match that I saw at ADCC Sweden where a friend of mine in the first half passed the guy's guard and took his back and was dominating, but then he gassed. The other guy got out, and the other guy passed his guard, and then that second guy won. Now, had there been points the whole time, a guard pass and a back take obviously trumps a guard pass, but not with the points period. And now, of course, my friend knew that going in. He knew going in this is the rule set, right? And he probably pushed a little bit too hard at the beginning. I think he thought he was going to get the choke, so he put a lot of energy in it. And you have to know to not do that under ADCC rules. But I just personally, like, to me, it's like, you did pass the guy's guard and you did take the guy's back and you didn't really get much reward for it. In fact, you almost got, like, punished for it, right? I would just have points the whole time. Other than that, I generally like ADCC rules. Every rule set you can kind of nitpick, but I think that one's pretty good. And I think IBJJF is not terrible. I don't like the advantages because I think they're a little bit, like, arbitrary at times. Yeah, and like I've seen DQs in IBJJF that I'm like one that really stands out to me is Kennedy Maciel, Cobrinia's son. He got DQ'd once for going for an ankle lock, but the ref said it was an Aoki lock, and it's like, I don't think, it didn't really look like an Aoki lock to me. And it's like, so it's like, should you just not go for ankle locks? Like yeah. So it's like, I don't really like that part of it. But I do still like their rule set. I think the point structure is good. I would say those two are my favorites. My least favorite is sub only. I hate sub only. Yeah. I just don't like how it doesn't reward, like, positional advancement, right? Like, if I pass your guard or take your back or sweep you, I think there should be a reward for that. Whereas there isn't really. Like, it's very easy, especially under EBI rules. Like, EBI is an amazing historical tournament. Like, it's very important to grappling history. But I think it kind of came to be that the smartest way to win EBI is save energy in regulation and go really hard in overtime, right? Like, just focus on surviving in the regulation period and get super good at the overtime rounds. Like, that's the best way to win EBI. Yeah. Because what happened was, what made the original EBI really intense was the fact that you only got paid if you submitted them during regulation. But then when you take that out, most other tournaments are not even paying people. So they got rid of that. So then people are like, why would I go hard during regulation?
There needs to be some incentive.
Yeah, you need to have something. And I think they've experimented with different things, but ultimately the best thing to encourage people to do jiu-jitsu during regulation is points, right? Like, if if I pass your guard, I get a reward for it, right? If I mount you, if I take your back, if I sweep you, whatever, you get a reward for it. So, I like points rule sets overall the best.
Yeah, if you were to create your own rule set and the rest of the world were to have to abide by it for the next 50 years, what would that rule set look like?
I would probably just do ADCC rules with slight modifications. Like, I would get rid of the no points period. I would make it so that the finals matches are the same as the regular matches. I would adjust the sweep rule set very slightly. So, for instance, there's a sweep rule under ADCC rules that here's how I would adjust it. Okay, so if let's say you're on bottom, the guy's on top of you. You go to, let's say you just enter single leg X, you put the guy down to his hips. You're both on your hips for longer than 3 seconds. Then you proceed to get on top. Did you get a score there? No, you actually didn't, because you were double seated for longer than 3 seconds, which means it's not a bottom to top situation anymore. It's now a neutral double seated situation. And you don't get points for coming on top in a double seated situation. I would simplify it and I'd have to work out how to word this maybe, but I would just have it be, if you are on bottom and then you get on top, that's a sweep. Those are points. Like, that's how I would do it like that. for people that are listening and they're like, what the fuck is Rob talking about? Like, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's probably the case for most of our listeners.
Yeah, like it's ADCC rules are like really, really complicated. And it's like, you know, if you understand them, they make sense, but then there's certain parts of where you're like it's possible to, I'll just describe a scenario that doesn't get you any points, which is almost like, it's almost hard to believe it doesn't get you points. If I shoot a double leg on you and then you turtle, and then I go behind your shoulders and I'm in a top turtle. 3 seconds go by, then you roll to your back and I go to a side control. I just got 0 points.
This is after the 5 minutes.
No, after. This is after this is during the points period. You would still score 0 points for that because I didn't get a takedown because turtle is not a takedown. Now, Aiga, it's another rule set. That would be a takedown because Aiga is similar to ADCC, but turtle gets a score, right? So in folk style or freestyle wrestling or Greco, if I take you down, you go to turtle, that's still a score. I think that actually should be still a score. You still took the guy down, right? But anyway, so whatever. It's not an ADCC. So you didn't get a takedown. Then if 3 seconds go by, it's no longer a standing situation. So if I shoot, you turtle. If you go to your back before 3 seconds, you're conceding the takedown. You're giving up the takedown, right? But after 3 seconds, it's no longer a takedown situation. Now I don't know how it's worded, but it's like we're both grounded or something like that. Then if you roll to your back and you go to side control, did I pass your guard? No, you never had a guard. Turtle's not a guard. So I'm in side control on top and I got no points for it.
That's insane.
Yeah.
No, it's not. You just don't give any points.
It's so confusing. So one thing is like reffing ADCC, lots of people will make mistakes because it's like, bro, it's fucking hard to keep track of all this stuff, right? You're like, did 3 seconds go by? Like, you know, it's like, there's so many things happening at once. Yeah.
So the no points period is just like a 5-minute breather for the referee.
Kind of, almost.
Prepare for the second half of the match.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so I refereed Asian trials. I refereed a couple other tournaments. And it's like, it is true. Like the first half, it's like way more chill because you can just be like, okay. The number one thing you focus on the first half is when they go out of bounds, stop them and make sure they reset in the same position and make sure I was trying to make sure no one got hurt. Like if someone gets a tight submission and is cranking it, you've got to stop the match when the guy taps, right? So that's really your priority in the first half. But then when the points are on as well, it's like, you know, there's a lot to consider for sure. But
You're just thinking, man, I hope this guy gets a submission in the first.
Yes, for sure. Actually, yes. You're not kidding. Dude, okay, here's a funny story of the worst match that I ever reffed. The whole time I was like, please, someone submit someone. So at Aiga, the last match that I reffed between Enrique Saccone and Giancarlo Bodoni, the two ADCC level guys, way bigger than me. Like these are like, I want to say like 90 kilo guys. And it's on a stage where they're, it's like an elevated stage, so they can fall off and get hurt, and they could fall into me. So, yeah, so it was like, and you know, when you have it's a high stakes match between two elite level guys, you don't want to fuck up. And also, I don't want anyone to get hurt, including myself. I don't want them to crash into me and stuff, right? So, but these guys are big dudes, and it wasn't that big a stage. They kept like pushing each other around, and I was, you know, if you watch this video on Flow, it's almost like hilarious. You see them like, stop. You know, they would drive each other near the edge. At one point, it was the only time it happened all day. They fell off the stage, and I'm running after them like, stop. You know, I mean, it happens, right? But yeah, and then fortunately, if I remember correctly, I think Giancarlo got a guillotine. I think if I remember correctly. But yeah, I remember when Giancarlo pulled guard, I was like, please get the submission now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Being a referee is tough.
The elevated stage looks like a nightmare.
It was rough. It's easier when it's not an elevated stage because then it's like they're not gonna fall off, obviously, right? You still don't want them to roll. Like at trials, there was one match where a guy shot a double into the other and they went into the table. They smashed the table. And that was, I think, my biggest fuck up of the day. I was on the other side of them, so I couldn't really prevent it. But they're not falling off the stage. It's still safer, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think the elevated stage looks awesome for camera. That's why they do it. But for sure, like a mat on the floor is safer. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How much do you change the way you're training and like your daily routine based on the rule set? Say like if you're going to compete in a tournament as a specific rule set, are you just training the same way, then you show up and you already know the rules, or are you changing the way you train every day leading up to that event?
I don't change it really at all, because I pretty much only care about ADCC at this point, and to a much lesser extent. So I haven't done IBJJF in a long time, but I would like to do. There's certain IBJJF tournaments I would like to do, but it's still like a points rule set, right? So I don't really change it that much. If I had like a really big opportunity in like a sub-only or like EBI rules event, I would probably do a camp specific for that. But right now, almost everything I'm doing is like with the mindset towards ADCC and to a lesser extent, like IBJJF rules type stuff, you know. So in May, there's the Siam Cup in Bangkok. I don't know what rule set they're using now. When I did them, they used an IBJJF rule set, but then they changed it to sub only. So I don't know what the next one's going to be. I'm going to do it, but I have no idea what the rule set's going to be. I hope it's points again. That would be better. But yeah.
Zach prefers dancing around on the outside for the rest of the time limit.
Whatever.
Same thing he does in the training room.
Yeah.
One technique he really drills. What he does in the training room is exactly what he does on match day.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. All right. Yeah. I mean, it might be sub only, or maybe IBJJF. What does it say? Yeah, see, now it's sub only with a judge's decision. Yeah, so it's one championship rules, which is like I think that effectively just means it's like kind of identical to Polaris, if I'm not mistaken, which
favoring action.
Yeah, but so there's no points, so it's sub only. It's sub only with a judge's decision.
Completely up to the ref.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that because then it's like you could have, for instance, like a ref that just like doesn't like you. It's the truth. And they could just give it to the other guy and you can't say anything because like how are you going to prove what they did, right? Like I'm not saying this has ever happened to me. I don't think it has. But I don't know. I like having more like objectivity, you know, like when there's points, right? Like you pass someone's guard, you stabilize the position, you get the score, you know you've got that, right? Like you can look at the scoreboard, you can see it, right? There's less ambiguity about it, but yeah, but it is what it is, whatever. I'm still going to do the tournament. The Siam Cup, the one that I did years ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, it was really well run, and I think it was a great tournament, so I'm going to do it again.
It's on May 4th this year.
Yeah, it's the weekend after ADCC Singapore, which I'm planning on doing that, yeah.
And this is in Bangkok?
This is Bangkok. Yeah, most likely it will be at probably the same mall that they had it last time, I bet. Yep, Bravo BKK. Yeah, it's like a mall. It's like a pretty good.
You can like stay in a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where I'll stay there. I'll probably go for like a couple days and hang out with my friends. Bangkok, not my favorite city to live in, but it's definitely fun still. Like, probably easiest city on the face of the planet to have a good time.
Yeah, there's also ADCC Malaysia, their first tournament.
So
it's
they
going to be on June 2nd.
They took the page off Smooth Comp. I don't know what that means.
I know the guy.
Yeah, so it's not on Smooth Comp anymore. I've been planning to do it for a while too, but they took it off.
Because that'll be the first one in Malaysia.
Yeah, first one in Malaysia. So if you go to adcombat.com/events, you'll see all the ADCC events. And if you go to registration, it's not there. You go to Smooth Comp, it's not there. I'm not saying it's canceled. I hope it's not, but it's not on Smooth Comp. I'll say that. But there's also the ABJJC, which is happening in Bangkok, I think, I want to say like June 17th or something. I have a whole list of events that I'm planning to do. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my Instagram, but it's not working right now.
Yeah, well, trust me, it's as of today, it's not on Smooth Comp. If tomorrow it is, I hope so, but yeah, it's not.
It's their first event.
Yeah. Do you know the guy who's running it?
Yeah, they used my picture to promote it on the first one, so I feel pretty cool about it.
Okay, nice.
But, they just took the picture from the ASJGF last year.
Okay, cool.
And they're like, yeah, we really want to promote grappling, in Malaysia.
What city is it in? KL, Kuala Lumpur? Yeah, okay, cool.
People were probably complaining about the picture.
That's what it was.
Alright, we'll just cancel the tournament.
If this guy's the best thing we got.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna hang it up.
Nice.
Yeah, but the day before they have a gi tournament.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's
I've been-
common.
I've been promoting this whole thing. Like you go down, you can get like 10 mats if you do your weight class plus absolute both days. Because it's hard to get people to travel here to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of trying to build like a competition team, I guess. Or
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Just like getting a group of people to go from all the gyms.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we have a group, we have some support. Like
Yeah.
you can show up to a tournament when no one is coming from your gym, and you know you'll have like a bunch of people that you're familiar with to support you, to corner you, and just like have that kind of feeling.
That's something that I am also like, if I stay here, I definitely want to help build that with you guys, because that's the thing I miss the most from my purple belt, early brown belt days. When I was at Henzo's, we had a group of guys. We used to travel all the time to compete together, and like I haven't had that in a long time. And like, there's nothing that sucks more than going. Well, that's not true, but something that sucks, I will say, is going to a tournament and winning it, and then afterwards having no friends to hang out with. You're like, fuck. It feels so empty. Like it's sort of like it's a little bit of a depressing feeling. Now, what sucks more is losing the tournament and then having no friends to hang out with.
Happened to me at Penh a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it sucks bad. Especially when you travel from outside the country and then go and then you spend all this time and you get one match.
Yeah. Yeah, it blows. But even winning under those conditions, it feels like depressing, dude. Like you can win and then it just like is like, fuck, like you just go back to your hotel and like you go on Instagram, you're like, well, look at me, I did a good job, guys.
I prefer to lose in the first round locally with all my friends around.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm definitely like on board with that. The tricky thing is like, you know, it's like sometimes in Southeast Asia, you don't know which tournaments are going to actually be good, like, or even sometimes are going to happen. So I was going to Bangkok when I was living in Singapore. There was a tournament in Bangkok. It was like on Smooth Comp, and I bought my flight. I got my hotel. I got everything set up, and then like the event, like a week before, was canceled, and I was like, "What? What happened with this event?" So I couldn't get my money back on anything. So I still went and I trained with some of my friends there. I like recorded videos for an instructional. I was like, I'm gonna make some use of this weekend. I just asked a friend of mine that has a gym there, can I record stuff in your gym? And they were like, sure. And then I went back home, but I was like, that I did not come here to do this. I came here for a competition, which ultimately ended up not happening. So. Yeah, I mean that doesn't happen super often, but still, like it's a little bit sometimes like you don't know what's going on.
Or sometimes your flight's canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the flight is going; it's just on a different AirAsia.
Yeah.
It's up to you to figure that out.
Yeah, they should just have a different fucking logo. It's not that complicated. Yeah, but now I know. These are the lessons you learn, right? Years ago, I went to India for seminars, and there was a guy. He's actually an Indian guy who lives in Germany. His name is Rama Reddy, and he told me something that I have never forgotten, and I've always carried with me pretty much anywhere I travel around the world. He said, whenever you're in India, if anything crazy ever happens, just remind yourself, this is India, right? So if these kinds of things happen, right? Weird things that you weren't expecting, just remind yourself, this is India.
Give us a one India story.
Okay, so this is like a really small one, but it is kind of funny. So I went to see a Bollywood movie in Bangalore, right? It was late at night. I was like bored. I was like, I'm just going to go watch a movie at this movie theater here. I go into the movie theater. There's a kid probably in his 20s working the box office, and I ask him, I say, hey, do you speak English? He nods his head and says, yes. I said, okay, great. I said, are there any of these movies with like English subtitles? And he goes, yes. I'm like, oh, cool, awesome, amazing. I point to this one with like a historical action movie. I said, does this one have English subtitles? Yes. I'm like, oh, great, awesome. All right. I'll get one ticket to that. So I get the ticket. I get my popcorn, I get snacks and stuff. I go into the theater, it's a packed fucking theater, right? I sit down after 10 minutes. There are no English subtitles. And I keep thinking like, okay, maybe they're gonna like start or something. Like, I don't know what's going on here. And I have no idea what's happening because I can't speak Hindi, obviously. And I come out of the theater and I get the manager and I was like, hey man, I'm not like mad or anything. I'm just so confused. I was like, I asked the kid if this movie had English subtitles and he said yes. He goes, oh. He goes, yeah, that kid doesn't speak English. Yeah, but and he just was like saying yes because he was like trying to be polite or something, right? Like, and I was like, can I have my money back for the ticket? I was like, I'll take the popcorn because I'm already eating it, but can I have my money back for the ticket? And he actually gave me my money back. No issues, no arguments. Yeah. The next day at the gym, I told my Indian friends this, and they were like, he gave you your money back? And I was like, yeah, no arguments whatsoever. He didn't really care. And they were like, yeah, he must have just felt bad for you. Because they said he would never do that for like a local, right? If you were a local, he'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. Fuck you. But for me, I guess he's like, okay, this dumbass tourist doesn't know anything. So yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, so it was, not really that big a deal. But it was funny. It's funny. It's like, that reminds me a lot of like what'll happen in like Thailand, right? Have you guys heard of Mai Pen Rai? So Mai Pen Rai is like a Thai phrase, which just means never mind. And it's like, you'll ask Thai people questions and they don't know the answer, but they will just tell you something because they're like Mai Pen Rai. Like they don't really because Thai people don't want to feel, I guess the culture there is like, it's rude to not give an answer, right? It's rude to just say, I don't know, right? When in reality, sometimes that would be better because you'll be like, oh, is this, like one time I was in Bangkok and I was trying to find something. I was like, is this down here? And they were like, yes, it's down that way. And then I went down that way. It was not down that way. I asked a friend of mine, I was like, yeah, he said to go this way. He goes, no, Rob, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He just wants you to stop asking him questions. Mai Pen Rai. So I guess it's a similar kind of thing.
What are some of the other phrases you learned in your first?
Sabai means like relax. Yeah, sabai. I speak. I shouldn't even say I speak anything. I don't speak Thai. I know a few funny phrases. I know enough phrases to get Thai people to like laugh. So yeah.
Were there any other phrases you learned when you first got to Thailand that your buddies told you?
The Ao Mai one, which was like, yeah, they told me they said it meant, so it's to do with like lady boys. They told me that it meant I'm not interested, but really it means I would like to try. So like, yeah, I was saying, I was walking past them and I was saying, I was doing this with my hand too. I was like, get away from me. And they were like, but I was saying, I want to try. So they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, they were so confused. Yeah. Yeah, that's like, dude, it's funny. My mom asked me recently, like, her and my dad have not really traveled that much, and they want to travel around Asia a little bit. And she was asking where I think they should go. I said, definitely go to Singapore. And I said, definitely also go to Thailand. I said, but just keep in mind, in Thailand, if dad is by himself, like, women are gonna, like, try to, they're trying to get him to come into a place, right? And ladyboys are also going to do that. Yeah. And my mom was like, never mind, we're not going there. She was like, we're not going to Thailand. I was like, it's not, like, it's fine. Like, it's like, they're not going to like kidnap dad, right? But just know, right? Like that, if he's by himself, that's going to happen. I'm like, but just go in knowing that and you'll be fine. My parents are not super experienced travelers. So I was trying to give them like easy places to go to. Like, I think like places like Taiwan, Korea, Singapore, maybe. I've never been to Japan, but I'll bet you it's pretty easy there.
Yeah, Japan's super clean. Everyone's nice.
Yeah. Whereas like an inexperienced traveler, if you go to places like India, I think Vietnam is like not an easy place to travel to. I would not recommend inexperienced travelers come to Vietnam. It's not the hardest. It's not India, but it is not super easy. Or like Cambodia is another one where it's like sort of like mid-range difficulty level.
For sure.
Yeah.
My parents, 63 years old, never left America, never really left that small town, came here.
Yes.
First. And they did 4 years ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I think I had more fun watching them Then they
Nice.
had, I mean, I recorded like almost everything,
so
and they were just taking it in, you know, and everything was so different, and so that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
They were, I mean, it was around 10. They were riding motorbikes.
Wow.
They were speaking a little bit of Vietnamese and just order pho, Chúc mừng năm mới, which means Happy New Year.
Oh wow.
We went to 9 different cities.
Wow.
But you know, definitely, I mean, it's good that I was here to kind of like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be tough. The very first place, Vietnam, would be tough. But I think Japan would be easy though.
Yeah, I've never been there. I might go there soon just to visit, but it looks easy. Yeah. It's funny. I sometimes forget. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine recently he was going to come here to Vietnam to train with us. He didn't come, and you know, there was like situations with like the flights and stuff. And sometimes I forget. Like, I've traveled so much that situations where I'm like, okay, it's not that big a deal. Like, you could just figure it out, right? Like, people who haven't traveled very much, it's like it's things. Traveling it's not like a difficult skill, but it is a skill, right? Like, it's problem solving, and it's just like accepting that, like the "this is India" thing. Like,
India, bro.
Yeah, like, dude. Okay, here's another funny India story, right? I've only been to India with Indian friends, right? So I've never been there by myself. The second time I went to India, I walked around with my friend Sanjay for maybe like 3 hours trying to find a SIM card. We could not find a fucking SIM card, and he's a local there, right? Eventually we found something, but it's like there was none in the airport, none that were easy to find. I mean, we looked forever until we eventually found something, because I don't want to be in a foreign country without a SIM card. Like, if you're in the middle, like, let's say, there's certain cities where you'll be fine. If you're in the middle of Bangkok, the middle of Singapore, it's not that hard. A lot of people speak English. You can look at the map of the train system. You can get around, right? But Bangalore, India, they don't have a train system.
Bangalore, it's like a nice city.
Yeah.
One time I went up to Srinagar, India. I was in Kashmir, and it was actually I did not watch the news. I didn't do anything. So I was everything will be fine. I just want to see pretty mountains. And
It's like a war zone, right?
Yes, it's a war zone. And this was like
Disputed territory.
Oh, no.
This was during a period of unrest, of like the most unrest in like 30 years. And this was in 2016. So the girl I was with, you know, we were watching TV the night before. She's like, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of terrorist threats in where we're going." I was like, "Don't worry about any of that. that doesn't matter. Nothing you see on the news matters."
Is she Indian?
No,
Or was
she's
she
American.
Oh, okay.
But like she's American, but she's been living in New Zealand for the past 10 years. We were just kind of traveling, and she's like, "I love India," and I was like, "Okay, I'll go." But I want to go to Kashmir, you know. So then we land in Srinagar, and she's like, there's no other Westerners in the airport, and only military people got off of that airplane. I was like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that at all. In my mind, I was like, man, I really can't wait to walk around, check out the restaurants and the bars and stuff. I just can't wait. I had this image in my mind. Man, I wonder what the coffee's going to taste like around here. So then this guy came up to us and said, "Hey, you want to go to a hotel?" And he's like, "Hey, there's like, you know, there's Swiss people there. Basically, there's other white people. There's people like you."
Right.
And I was like, all right, whatever. And then, so we leave the airport, and everything is closed, like literally. It's the middle of the day. Like, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, the airport just opened up after 3 months of being closed, and everything is like, there's no one here." They took us to like this houseboat, like a houseboat place. No one was renting the houseboats. 7 people tried to get us to rent the houseboat. It was like $6. So if they would have made the sale, they would have made like 50 cents each, like 9 people, and they were really aggressive. So anyway, we get to the hotel, and we were the only people in the entire hotel.
Oh my
And I was like,
Where were all the people that looked like you?
no, they were not there. They were not there. And then we ended up leaving the next day, and they almost didn't let us leave. like we had to really. I don't think I slept that. I don't think I slept that night. Yeah. The next morning we get. Finally, we talked him into taking us back to the airport. But yeah, it was India.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, but I mean, but yeah,
it sounds like an interesting experience.
I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, just really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been in a war zone, so not that I don't want to be. Yeah. The closest I came was I almost went to Russia for a tournament 2 weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine. I didn't go, but I was like planning on going. And then the guy who was organizing the tournament, he was like, "Rob, do not come." He goes, "Do not come." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Do you watch the news?" I was like, "I haven't really been following it, to be honest." He goes, like, "Shit is about to go down." And I was like, "But I'm not like I'm not involved with it." Yeah. I was like, "I want to see Russia." And so I didn't go. Yeah. I still want to go to Russia. Like, that's at the top of my list of places I want to go to. But
Where would you go in Russia?
I want to go to Dagestan. I want to go to Makhachkala. I want to go to Vladivostok, very far out east. I want to go to Moscow, maybe St. Petersburg. Top three is the first three I mentioned: Moscow, Vladivostok, Makhachkala. But
specifically in Dagestan.
Well, I'd like to train with the guys there. I think that would be really cool. Just see what it's like there. There's a team called Universal Fighters that is like really, really good, and I would be interested in training with them just to see like how they do things. There's a lot of different teams around the world I'd like to train with just to see how they do things. And I just think like Russia is like a very interesting country with like a long and rich history, you know, and like. Obviously, in the West right now, there's a demonization of Russia, right? But we have to remember the average person is not involved with whatever political conflicts are going on between governments. It doesn't have to do with the average person, right? Like, I'm sure the average person would be very nice.
So, you gotta have a few rounds with Raymond while you're here because he's from Dagestani. He's Dagestani and.
I want to train with him for sure. I've talked to him about taking his wrestling classes, so pretty soon I'm going to start doing those. We've talked a lot. He knows people who like I've posted like Dagestani guys that I'm fans of, like Buvaisar Saitiev, and he's like responded to the stories, and we've talked about it. Yeah.
That's my friend.
Yeah. He said that he knew Saitiev like vaguely. Because there's a big age difference. He was young when Saitiev was old, so yeah. But he knew who he was. But I'd really like to go to Russia and like, I don't know. I don't really want to go to any places that are like dangerous. I don't think I've ever been anywhere I felt like unsafe, like ever really. But here's a good story actually. The only time I've ever almost been mugged was here in Vietnam. This happened a couple days ago. Yeah. So first night I land, I got off the plane. I was really tired. I check into this shitty but perfectly acceptable hotel. It was shitty, but it was honestly fine. It wasn't really that bad. So, but it was a shithole for sure. But anyway, so then I go to a park. I was just like fucking tired. I wanted to like chill out. I was sitting on a park bench and I have my fanny pack. I took it off. I just put it next to me. Just chilling.
That's probably why you were a target.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I mean, why? Because
fanny pack.
I keep the fanny pack because you can't pickpocket me then, right? Because you can't put your hands into my pocket, right? That's why I have a fanny pack. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I had it, but I took it off. I had it next to me. Next thing I know, I feel my fanny pack moving. And keep in mind, it is like the middle of the night. It's like 3 a.m., right? I feel my fanny pack moving. I look and I see a fucking dude crawling on the floor, putting his hands up through the bench to grab my fanny pack. And I just, did I tell you this story before? Yeah. And then I stopped, I grabbed the guy, and I was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, oh. And so I'm like, okay. So I do like a spot check on him. I said, don't fucking move. I put my fanny pack on, obviously. I zipped it up. So the problem with my fanny pack right now, I have to get a new one. Even if I zip it, it like little holes it's very old. I'm so cheap. I need to replace it. But like a little hole sometimes opens up in it, right? So I wasn't sure if he got his hand in there. So I zipped it open and then closed again to make sure it was fully closed. I spot checked him. I checked his pockets, checked everything. And then I was like, get the fuck out of here. And he left. But that was the first thing that happened to me. Landing.
You should go back to the park, provide security.
No, it's not my problem now.
Yeah, pick the wrong guy to rob.
I wanted to like, bro.
What were you gonna do? Leg lock him?
No. I wanted to like fucking like. There were cops right over there. I could see the police. I wanted to take this guy and go up to the police and be like, this motherfucker tried to rob me. But obviously, I can't speak Vietnamese. This guy can. I'm going to take this guy up to the cops, and he's going to be like, this dude is assaulting me, right? So obviously, I just was like, let me just cut my losses at this point. I was like, get the fuck out of here, right? Yeah. That's the only time anyone's ever, like, almost stolen anything from me, except there's actually one time I forgot. I had my U.S. passport stolen when I was in Brussels. That's and that was it wasn't really that big a deal. I went to the U.S. embassy and I got an emergency passport, but it was definitely annoying because like they did not believe me at first. They're like, we don't think you're really American. I was like, I am. Yeah, it was Belgians working at the U.S. embassy. I wasn't even dealing with Americans. Yeah. I was like, I'm American. Listen to me speak. How do you think I'm not American? They're like, anyone could say that. I'm like, okay, well, I was like, okay, but I am though, and I want to go home. Like, yeah.
I actually lost my passport here.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago in Hanoi.
Okay.
And I went to the embassy. And
The good old days. When Zach was misbehaving.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't even worried out. I went there and I was like, yeah, I lost my passport. No, okay, show us some identification. I was like, yeah, I don't have any. And they're like, okay, fill out this piece of paper, and I got one. It was the easiest passport ever.
That's because you were dealing with Vietnamese people and not Belgians. Yeah. Dude.
The Vietnamese, they heard you speak, though. This guy's from Virginia.
They already knew the town I was from. I didn't even have to tell them. I was born in Lexington, Virginia. Like, we know.
Embassies in Asia are so much easier to deal with than ones in Europe or even in North America.
Oh man, like my partner, she's amazed at the service you get here. Because trying to get anything done in the States is like,
Yeah.
it's like the DMV. It's a hassle. But you go here, oh, you can make an appointment. Oh, someone will talk to you when you show up. Oh, they actually are trying to help you? Like,
It's probably easier to fly here in the US.
you need some paperwork done? Just like, I fly directly across the world.
It's literally so much better out here. When I lived in Singapore, I did a lot of stuff with the Italian embassy there. That's where I got my first Italian passport in Singapore. They were so friendly and so helpful, and like it's so unreal how much less helpful they are in the U.S. When you go to Italian embassies in the U.S., it's just like night and day, you know. And it's like I don't know what the cause of that is. I couldn't tell you, but that's just been my experience.
I'm sure the embassy in Italy is just like, come back after 4.
Well, yeah. So I've had that happen too, where you go to like in Italy, a local government office is called a comune. I've been to comunes when they're supposed to be open, and you go and they're like. One time I was in Italy. I went to the comune to file paperwork, and the guy opens the door. He sees a line of people, and he goes, "COVID," and he closes the door. I'm like. You're open. Like you have to do this. Like this is your job. But he just could not be bothered. So no one got anything done that day. So yeah. My friend that I was with, he goes, "Do you want to go to another comune in like the next town over?" I was like, "No, just never mind. I'm not gonna do this here." Yeah. Total a complete waste of time. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. We've got like 10 minutes before this, before it closes up here. Rob, thank you so much for coming here. I think I can speak for everyone. Anyone here in the grappling community is happy to have you here.
Thanks.
And I know that once we start visiting a lot of the gyms, you're really going to connect with the people. So opportunities will present themselves. But this is a really special community that we have here.
So
Yeah. The last thing I'll say before we end the podcast, I definitely get that sense. Like I like all the gyms that I've trained at. I've trained at 4 different gyms here. So Arcane, Jozu, Over Under, and Team Shark. And I want to go visit Vinculum. I haven't been there yet, but the owner has been like really nice to me on Instagram. Yeah, like everyone has been super cool and super welcoming and really, really nice. And like I said earlier in the podcast, to me, the jiu-jitsu community is the best part of this entire country, honestly. Like, I really like the jiu-jitsu community. So, yeah, for sure. Hopefully we'll train with people more, and I'd love to help grow jiu-jitsu in Vietnam.
For sure. Absolutely.
yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you here. I look forward to training soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Learn some new things.
Yeah,
Use that up with.
Did
I notice how we do all the time? I do something else to you.
This guy, so he was, I first met him when he was in my wrestling class, you know, at an old gym. And ever since then, he's just been trying to take me down for the last 7 or 8 months. Finally got a Muay Thai foot sweep on me.
I don't know trying your sport to go figure something out. So here's the thing, Zach is like, he is basically, I'm learning wrestling from him. He's my wrestling coach.
Yeah.
Didn't teach me anything. So I had to go actually start training Muay Thai just to learn some takedowns. Because he really wasn't offering any support. And yeah, that's the most success I've had. It's actually working.
Check out our weekly episodes on Spotify and YouTube. You can also see our page on Instagram, TikTok, and OnlyFans. Wait.
Not that one.